Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. What a beautiful evening. Finally, Adriana thought on her way home from work. Spring, spring. I wish I were 5 years younger. Adriana was no longer a young girl. 30 years were coming up on birthdays. She didn't celebrate as hotly as she had at 18. Still, the mood was elevated. The warm spring evening gave off a pleasant freshness. The sun seemed to be frozen in the sky and was in no hurry to go to its nocturnal abode. It was spreading out in the sky. How does the yolk spread in a frying pan? The swallows cried out shrilly at the careless movement of the hostess, swiftly swooping overhead. The flower beds outside the driveway were neatly combed with rakes, and thick, still slightly greenish sprouts of future tulips made their way over the ground. She walked, taking her time walking home. In spite of 2 large heavy bags, she lived with her husband alone. Every evening, the bags were so heavy that the grannies on the bench were perplexed. Who was she carrying it all to? And the bags contained everything her fastidious husband Michael liked. Even though he didn't work himself, he didn't drink tap water. He didn't like the smell of it, so she bought it in bottles. He also needed lemonade, juice, and expensive good coffee, selected milk and cream. In case he ran out of milk every night, he ate something nice for tea, and he was sure to have fruit and vegetables. Michael took care of himself and his health. God bless everybody. Whenever he had anything, he had expensive examinations. He took money from Adriana, dressed in expensive stores, at the same time making a remark to his wife that she dresses like an old woman. You should at least take care of yourself. I get the feeling that people think you're my mother, not my wife. More and more often I had to hear Adriana say that. She would listen to it in silence, after which she would go to the bathroom, and in spite of intense fatigue, she put on makeup. She wore youthful clothes. She tried to act cheerful and carefree. She knew that he, like other men, liked women who were cheerful, well-groomed, and light like butterflies. Here she often dreamed of being like a butterfly. Only it is hard to be a butterfly with heavy bags in her hands. Of course, she, like any other woman, wanted to dress in expensive clothes, do nice hairstyles, and spend money on herself. But when it came from hard work, it was not so easy to spend it on herself. On Michael, she spent it without even thinking about it. They had been married for 4 years, the last 3 of which he hadn't worked. Each time she was embarrassed in front of acquaintances when they asked about his work with derision. Then she decided to communicate less with other people. But the problems were getting bigger and bigger. Her husband's needs were increasing and Adriana's salary was not, which really annoyed Michael. So he talked Adriana into taking out 2 loans on her, promising to help repay when she got a job. At times like that, he would call someone and pretend to be important and tell them that he was about to get a job. As soon as the credit card was in his pocket, there were no calls from outsiders. Neither did Michael himself. He spent the money easily, and during this period he had no claims. So Adriana very much appreciated this period of time between the end of the day and the moment when she would hear the words from the doorstep. Say, I need to stick the key in the lock. Adriana felt a pain in her fingers. When she looked at them, she saw purple streaks from the bags. How dry are my hands? I need to put some cream on them right now. Before Michael sees it, the girl thought. Behind the next front door, she heard Michael's voice. He laughed. Then the door opened and they met in the hallway. Oh, here comes my bunny. Okay, Betty, my wife's back. Call me if you need anything. They went into the house. Michael, as he always said, what would they have to do now? What would he want for dinner and what movie would they watch? Adriana was so hungry that she was glad for a piece of bread and tea too. But you can't do that. You have to get yourself cleaned up first. Set the table with sweets, juices, and fruit. And in the meantime, while her husband is snacking, she'll cook dinner under his. I'm so hungry, make it quick. And it all has to be done with a genuine smile. Over dinner, Michael tells me that he went to a neighbor's house to fix a faucet. You know, she comes knocking, says there's water coming out of the faucet. Turns out the threads were loose. I fixed it in no time. Then why did we call a plumber a week ago if you know how to do it yourself? Asked Michael Adriana in surprise. I think everyone should do their own work. Her husband began to explain. So I'm the manager and I have to do it. That's what I'm good at. And plumbing isn't my job. Let the locksmith deal with it. And what did you do at the neighbors, if you do not understand? Adriana asked angrily. And without waiting for an answer, she went to bed. The husband lamented for a long time in the kitchen, wiping the table and saying that it was not his duty to clean the table. At the same time, he was praising himself for another half an hour, telling himself how good he was to her. He was telling himself what a good boy he was. Other alcoholics and drug addicts were walking around dirty and swearing, but he was a handsome man. Clean cut, doesn't smoke, doesn't drink. Michael went to bed and hugged Adriana. Ugh, he said with disgust. Again, he used his laundry soap and turned on the other side, began to leaf through a funny application on his phone, periodically laughing and shaking Adriana so that she shared with him this joy. But Adriana was already fast asleep. After all, she had to go to work again soon. Her position was a low one, and so was her salary. She worked in a bread store as a clerk. The store was close by, and the director of Kathy was a kind, sympathetic woman. There used to be 2 salesmen in that store, but one salesman had transferred closer to home. Then Adriana decided to work days off so she could pay off her credit cards faster. She scrubbed the floors at this store herself, and the director paid her extra. Where will you put the money? Kathy jokingly asked. Where will I find it? Adriana replied with a smile, and she herself was scratching her heart. The money she earned was barely enough to pay the minimum fee, and the rest of the money went to the family. She had worked without a day off for 2 months, and she really wanted at least one day to just be at home. So for her birthday, Adriana took the day off. The director kindly agreed to work the day herself. Adriana bought all the necessary products, expensive champagne, and a beautiful cake the day before. Deep in her heart, she hoped that Michael would still go to work and she would feel better. He had worked before, but he had lived on something. Adriana could not find answers. Often she looked for the reason for his idleness in herself. She wanted not to lower his standard of living, so that he would not slide to the bottom, thinking that his love of material possessions would encourage him to start earning again. But there was no movement on his part. He would either guffaw or let all the talk of work pass him by. If Adriana spoke in such a way that it was impossible to joke or not to hear, Michael would immediately start talking about how she was mercurial, and that he would definitely be working soon. Then he would begin to rebuke her about everything, trying every way to make her feel guilty. And the next thing she knew, she was worried. Michael would calm her down, and everything would start all over again. Adriana had long been unable to answer the question of whether she loved her husband. More and more, often the thought came into her head that she just felt sorry for what she had invested in him, not only money, but also care, sympathy, compassionate time. She knew very little about his parents. According to him, they lived somewhere far away. Michael didn't even give their exact location. What was alarming about Adriano was that every time he avoided questions about himself, all understanding, Adriana didn't really insist. She longed deeply for her deceased parents. 5 years ago, her mother had passed away, and her father had died even earlier. From her parents, Adriana was left with a 3-room apartment on the outskirts of the capital and a house from her grandfather in the suburbs, although it wasn't very far to get there. Adriana had not been there for many years, but her work did not let her go. Even her husband did not know about it. She did not tell him, because she knew that he would not be lured to live there. And he would insist on selling. Adriana was already thinking about selling the house and the land herself, to pay off the loan, to live like she used to without disappearing every day to work. She also had a dream to go to the sea, where she had never been. She had no sisters or brothers. and distant relatives lived very far away, and Adriana knew them only by name. And not all of them. She did not understand how it was possible not to communicate with her parents. Moreover, they were not getting any younger, but questioning them for 4 years led nowhere. That morning, Adriana opened her eyes and saw a huge bouquet of roses on the bed. In the bouquet, there was a note, "Happy birthday, Bunny." Joy this bouquet did not cause, rather fear. Adriana wondered in her head how much it cost. Why did Michael buy it, and how much time she would have to work for it? The husband himself was absent for some reason. He was usually asleep by this time, but not here. Maybe he had gone out to buy something, Adriana thought. As was her habit, she washed her face and went out to take out the trash. She did this every morning when she went to work. And today it was a day off. It was even kind of out of the ordinary. In her robe, Adriana walked to the garbage chute and heard her husband's familiar laughter going up to her floor in the elevator. All right, I'll wait for him, Adriana thought. When the elevator reached their floor, Michael, laughing, said, "Come on, why not buy one for her own money?" The door opened, and he changed his face. Behind him stood a disheveled neighbor, Betty. Adriana had never liked her. This vulgar person was completely uninhibited. She always smelled of booze and tobacco. "Honey, what are you doing here? Did you throw out the trash?" He spoke, looking at the bucket in her hand. "And you, I see, are back together. Maybe you can invite her to my birthday party." Adriana's whole mood dropped. When did they get into the apartment? Michael decided, as always, to blame it all on his wife. "Why are you so unhappy? Like a fool, I went and bought you flowers in the morning to get you in the mood, and you for my own money." Adriana couldn't stand it. "What's your money got to do with it? How mercantile you are. Can't you think of anything else but money? It's your birthday. Normal people go to a restaurant or at least a club. You're like an old granny. I should have given you needles and thread, not flowers in front of the neighbor. She's a normal, fun-loving woman. You could have invited her. It's more fun. So go to your normal." Woman in tears slammed the door to Adriana's room. She knew perfectly well that no matter what she said to her husband now, all the same she would lose, wiping away her tears. The girl quickly changed into comfortable clothes. Looking in the refrigerator, Adriana took a bottle of champagne and went to the exit. "Where are you going?" Michael noticed her leaving. "I'm going to work. I wish you the same." "I see. Go ahead. Why'd you take the champagne?" "Your neighbor will pour it for you. I see you two have become good friends. By the way, give me back my card." "How greedy are you, after all?" Shaking the card in his hand, Michael said, "I spent that money on you." Adriana pulled out the card, as if it were clutched in a vice. "Not just on me, judging by the text message, but on myself. I can spend it myself. Look for a job and earn your own money for clubs and flowers and stuff. And if you don't like it, you can get a divorce. I do not mind. Even so, you just fought well. What did you say? Every day waiting for you from work, like a dog. I mean, I'm her beloved dear. Here are your flowers in the morning. And she's going to get a divorce. You're just using me as a convenient dog. If I want to be with you. Get out." Adriana didn't listen and left. She felt lousy at home. She could not stay. So she went to her work with Kathy. There she was, the birthday girl herself. Happy birthday, of course. But somehow, you're home. You're supposed to be home celebrating. Yes, I am. But I had a fight with my husband. You could say that. And Adriana reached into her bag for the champagne. Well, this must be serious business. Come on in. And Kathy led Adriana behind the counter. There weren't many people in the store, and Kathy couldn't get drunk on one bottle of champagne for two. So the conversation came easily. Adriana spilled all that was piling up on her frazzled nerves. The boss could barely contain herself and occasionally uttered swear words in her husband's direction. Adriana had already decided to cut her story short, as she could tell from anger or something else. Kathy's face turned red. Kick him in the ass and be done with it. I can see you working your ass off here. Every day may not be the hardest job, but working with people every day is hard too. And you're mopping floors before the opening. It's not like sitting at home watching TV, and he's probably horny with Betty or someone else. Get a divorce before you have children. You shouldn't have children with him. By the way, why don't you have children? You have been married for a long time. He doesn't want to, she answered sadly. He says the earth is already overpopulated. That's why he thinks it's a feat not to have children. No way. I don't know him personally, though. Send him away. It's not over yet. And don't be sad. Don't even think about it. You'll never be happy with that jerk, believe me. You know that yourself. By the way, have you seen? The new security cameras were supposed to be here. My nephew Ethan just turned 18. He's already working. Not like your chicken shit. What does he do all day at home? Why don't I install cameras at home too? Then we'll find out. Adriana made a joke. Isn't that a good idea? Why not? They're expensive, but I suppose I could rent one. And Kathy winked at the girl. You're still young and gullible. You want to divorce yourself, but you feel sorry for him. And like they say, trust but verify. So how much more time are you gonna waste with him? I know families like this firsthand. He'll take all the debt he can get, and when there's nothing left to take, he'll leave you for another fool. He's a normal man. He won't stay at home that long. He lives in a metropolis, not in the middle of nowhere. I wish he did. He got a job a long time ago. There's a reason they say it's not worth keeping a whole boar for one sausage. Kathy laughed and hugged Adriana and promised she would talk to her own Ethan about installing cameras. Adriana reluctantly agreed, to which Kathy said to Adriana, "It's still your apartment. You can do whatever you want in it. Don't ever regret what you lost. Regret it better. What else is there to lose? So don't be a fool. You should get rid of junk, not pray for it." Adriana walked home thoughtfully. What if Michael found out about the cameras? How embarrassing would that be? On the other hand, if he had nothing to hide, then he had nothing to fear. Well, I'll see. A day or two. What's the big deal? Adriana came home and was pleasantly surprised. Michael washed the dishes. He set the table and was very nice to her. He said in a calm voice that everything happens in life and soon things will change for the better. You just have to trust me, Michael repeated. At times, in spite of all her husband's ingratiations, the urge to have fun was not there. Adriana had already looked for places where cameras could be discreetly placed. There were many such places, and she breathed a sigh of relief. It was her first birthday party where everything seemed artificial to her. The party didn't feel real. No friends, no relatives, no guests. Michael was also insincere. His demeanor was constantly swinging from exemplary to irritable. The evening was finally over, and Adriana fell asleep. The next day, while she was at work, Michael called her and told her he was going for a swim in the pool. Adriana said okay, and in the meantime she handed the keys to Ethan herself. It didn't take long to set up the cameras. And now she had her whole house in the palm of her hand on her phone. At first she was amused to see Michael playing video games and putting cream on himself, doing something to his face. Often he would leave the house and come back. But when she asked him what he was doing, he said he was waiting for her at home. Adriana thought this was a little strange, but she tried not to pay attention to it and looked at her husband on camera less and less frequently. Adriana worked every day, and her health began to deteriorate. Headaches, severe weakness, and bruises under her eyes appeared. She put it all down to fatigue and nerves. After a week, she felt even worse. She lost her appetite and began to feel nauseous. At one point, she even thought she was pregnant and went for an ultrasound. But the doctor said there was no pregnancy. He strongly suggested that she get some tests. Adriana probably never would have made it to the therapist, But Kathy insisted and threatened to fire her if Adriana didn't get all the tests right. To the girl's surprise, the therapist told her she had toxic substance poisoning. She began to ask her if she had any contact with poisons and chemicals, where and what she was eating. Adriana was surprised, but still bought all the medicines with a doctor's prescription. She was put on sick leave to relieve her intoxication, and for some reason the girl felt uncomfortable in front of Kathy. She decided it would be better to go into the store and talk to her herself. After she told her boss her family problems, Adriana was a little embarrassed of her. There was some sort of unpleasant shame. She herself did not understand why she was ashamed, either because she put up with a bum and could do nothing to change the situation, or indeed she herself did not match his level of thinking and self-esteem. When she arrived at work, she saw a new salesperson. The young woman was counting something. Kathy smiled amiably and introduced them to each other. "This is Adriana, our new saleswoman. We'll all take it easy now." She took Adriana aside to talk privately. "How's your health?" Kathy asked. "Did you go to the hospital?" "Yes," she answered timidly. "They said I had poisoning, and they put me on sick leave. I don't want to go on sick leave. I can take pills here, right?" "No, you can't," Kathy said angrily. "You go ahead and get cured, and then come back with a certificate. I'll pay your sick leave, as it should be. Have you been working for me for a long time?" "No, only lately I've been making a lot of mistakes. Incomplete acceptance. Did you have a supplier last time?" "At least he turned out to be a decent guy. He delivered the goods. And then you'd have to find out where the shortage came from." Adriana guiltily lowered her eyes. "Okay, I'll do as you say. And I probably won't need the cameras anymore. Thank you very much." Adriana quietly walked out and hesitantly closed the door behind her. A real surprise was waiting for her at home. Adriana knocked for a long time, but no one opened, pushing the key in the lock. She realized that the door was locked from the inside. She started knocking even harder, and finally, Michael opened the door from the apartment with the words "hello." A neighbor jumped out and literally almost knocked Adriana off her feet and just ran into her apartment. "Aren't you at work?" Michael said in a reproachful voice. She was so shocked that she didn't know what to say. She walked silently into the house and sat down in a chair. With her head in her hands, she asked, "Was she wearing my robe?" "No. Why would you think that?" Michael made a face like he wasn't even in the apartment with his roommate right now. "What's going on in my house anyway?" Adriana asked, as if in a voice that wasn't her own. "Well, here you go again. Not in your house, but in ours. We're husband and wife. Nothing's going on here. We just went out for a smoke on the balcony. Didn't you hear you knocking? I didn't even get a chance to ask her why she was here. You don't smoke. What are you saying to me now? Do you think I'm stupid?" "Yes. What kind of fool? You know how much I love you. Sweetheart. I don't smoke, but she does. Well, she's not going to stand there alone, smoking. I thought I'd go out and ask her what she wants. And then you rushed in like a whirlwind. You can't be so uncivilized in the 21st century. And you're being very rude right now. I think it's normal." If the neighbors are normal, Adriana didn't answer anything. She went to the bathroom and turned on the faucet. Watching the latest footage from the cameras on her phone, she saw all their normal communication. She was so disgusted that she turned on fast forward. At the end of this movie, she realized that her roommate wanted to throw her robe over the back of her chair in a fit of passion, but it flew over it. And in the turmoil of the knocking at the door, the couple had long rushed around looking for that robe. But finding no other option, she grabbed Adriana's robe. Adriana dialed Ethan's number and asked him to come right away. He said he would come as soon as he was free. She was worried about the integrity of the cameras, and not daring to tell Michael the truth to his face, she left the bathroom. Michael wasn't home, and neither was her neighbor's robe behind the chair. Time passed, but no one came in. Adriana poured herself a cup of coffee, lay down on the bed, and began watching the videos again. While she was in the bathroom, her husband retrieved her robe, her roommate's robe, and jumped out of the apartment like scalded. Deciding to finally get a divorce in the shower made things much easier. Adriana looked at her husband's things and already imagined the room without them. She opened the window and fresh spring air rushed into the room. It seemed to blow the smell of Michael's expensive cologne out of the room. What made Adriana even happier? She knew he would come soon and start making excuses, but she wasn't going to forgive him this time. Then Adriana started watching the videotape with understanding and noticed that Michael had added some kind of powder to her glass several times. She saw the yellow box from which he was taking it out and putting it back in the cabinet. Taking the box in her hands, she read what it was. Rat poison. Adriana was very frightened. Putting the box back, she ran to get the pills the doctor had prescribed her. After drinking them, she was about to call the police when there was a knock on the door. Standing on the doorstep was Ethan. He was smiling cheerfully and waving a small toolbox. What didn't come in handy? He asked and came into the room. No, they were useful. Thank you very much. I would have lived in ignorance if I had it all. You're not the first one to say that, Ethan said with a serious face and got to work. Adriana didn't know what to do. She didn't even want to talk to Michael. In one day he had gone from the man she loved to a horrible monster. How would he behave if she told him the truth? She didn't know. Adriana became afraid of him. Once he started poisoning her with rat poison, he was unlikely to stop at anything. Adriana was afraid that for fear of prison he might kill her. His betrayal was overshadowed, and all that remained was the fear for her life. She wanted to get rid of her husband. The sooner the better. She wanted to get rid of him, the sooner the better. Ethan very quickly removed all the cameras, helped her keep the videos. She told him everything that had happened, and he strongly advised her to go to the police. The guy finished the job and headed toward the exit. I'm with you, shrieked a frightened Adriana. Where are you going with me? Surprised, the young man asked. Wait, please wait. I will go outside with you. I will go to the police. That's right, Ethan said. Let them take care of it. Don't forget your documents. Adriana took the papers very quickly, and together they walked up the stairs. She was afraid she would run into Michael at the bottom, but he was not there. Adriana didn't have no trouble finding the police station. She had to wait a long time for the police officer. After a long conversation, she signed many papers. Several times uniformed people came into the office. Adriana had to tell them everything all over again. They seized the video from the phone, all the possible certificates with tests, photocopied the necessary documents. Then the police officers asked Adriana the question where her husband was now. I don't know. I think he will come soon, if he hasn't already. I did not tell him anything, said the girl, confused. It is good that you did not tell him. Where would we look for him later? You did the right thing in your situation. Adriana went home with the police officers, but her husband was not at home. They knocked on the neighbor's door, but no one opened either. Experts arrived, took the poison for testing, and made various reports and protocols. It got dark outside, and the police officers shook their hands. Let's do this. If the husband shows up or the neighbor comes, you call us right away. Don't tell him anything. Pretend you don't know anything about the poisoning. The door suddenly opened. On the doorstep stood a surprised Michael with a bouquet of flowers. Something had happened. He said in a whisper, "Come in, come in. Now we'll find out." The uniformed man answered in a calm voice. Michael was sweating. He sat down in a chair, wearing a jacket, from which Adriana's robe fell to the floor. "Here comes the robe with the pearl buttons," said one of the police officers, with eerie irony. "Well, they say it's better to see once than hear 100 times. I wish it were always like that." One man says one thing and another says another. "Are you going, young man? At least you're already dressed, I see. Take your passport." Michael could not believe his ears and eyes. "Is this about Betty?" Surprised, he could only say, We'll sort it out at the station." The policeman grinned and pointed his hand toward Michael's exit. Everyone except Adriana went outside. She was told to stay home and wait for the call. Don't go anywhere. A few months later, Michael was sentenced to 5 years in a maximum security prison for the attempted murder of his wife. As it turned out, he hoped to take possession of her property after Adriana's death. The girl was disgusted and scared to look at his belongings, so she stuffed them in bags, putting them under her neighbor's door. Betty saw these things, but did not take them home. She moved out of that rental apartment very quickly. After she left, Adriana felt better. The joy of life returned to her heart, and only empty credit cards returned her existence. In the process of her divorce, she found out that Michael had taken more money from the bank. More debts were piled on top of her. She would have to sell the house dejectedly. The girl thought, "But all debts I will give away, and the sea will remain." It had been almost a year since all this had happened. Adriana decided to take charge of the house. She should go and see what was left there. She thought longingly of her late grandfather. She began to dream about him often. She was as small as when her grandfather was alive. She would dream about the old house and then a strong wind, and she would wake up. It had been many years since she had been to her grandfather's grave. And feeling a strong sense of remorse, she began to gather her things. On the way, she saw artificial red flowers. They were anthuriums, the flowers of male happiness. She wanted to buy them, and despite the high price, she bought a whole bouquet. Only in the evening she arrived at the cemetery. It was getting late, and she decided to go in after all. Grandfather was buried at the very beginning near the fence. Adriana remembered it from when she had gone to visit him while her parents were still alive. And now the cherished fence appeared in front of her. She quickened her pace when suddenly a small herd of cows appeared close behind the hill. From this herd, upon seeing Adriana, a breeding bull broke away and headed in her direction with great speed. How was she frightened at that moment? Out of fear, the girl screamed hard and climbed over the fence. In 3 seconds, she was already on top of that fence, which consisted of iron bars. She saw that she had caught her leg with the rod, and it was bleeding. She was sitting on top of this terribly uncomfortable thin fence with red flowers in her hand, and the bull was already close by. Out of fright, she jumped off the fence, and so unluckily that a sharp, intolerable pain hit her right in the head. Trying to get up, the girl realized that she broke her leg, and the bull was standing by the fence and digging the ground with his hooves, terrifying her. So here she came with sadness and pain in her leg, she thought. There was a scolding cry from someone, and she began to call for help from over the hill on her horse. A shepherd showed up. He struck the whip and the bull and returned to the herd. "Can I help you?" asked the man, lying on the grass. Adriana, "Of course I can help. Can't you see? My leg is broken. Is that your bull?" "Yes, it's mine," as if proudly answered the shepherd. "Then I'll sue you. He almost killed me. My heart almost exploded, and I broke my leg because of him. Take me to the hospital right now." "What are you looking at? Did you like the flowers?" "Yes, I like them." "Don't shout. I'll take you, but you won't ride a horse." "Of course, I don't want to ride with a broken leg. I have a healthy one, and I don't know which side to approach your mare." "All right. I'll catch up with the herd and bring the car back, and you stay here. Don't go away." "Oh, I'm sorry. Your leg's broken. Where will you go?" The horseman disappeared. Adriana became quite ill. She was both hurt and scared at the same time. What if this shepherd didn't come back? She tried to get up, to grab hold of someone's cross, to gather all her strength. She did manage to get up. Adriana did not let go of the flowers and jumped to her grandfather's grave. There were berries growing in the place, and the grave was not overgrown. "Well, here I come to you, Grandpa." Sadly, she hugged the gray cross with the picture on it. "Your good-for-nothing only granddaughter is a loser." She somehow sat down on the ground, hugged the cross, and cried. It was so painful, and there was no one to even complain to. Adriana raked up last year's leaves with her hands and stuck red flowers in the ground. Here you have, grandfather, from me artificial flowers, like my whole life. Only pain and deceit, my eternal companions. How hard it is for me to be alone in this world. She continued in tears. A car was humming in the distance. Adriana saw a green clunker with big wheels. The driver honked his horn, and the girl waved a red flower. Then he stuck it on the ground again. I had to pull into the main gate to pick her up, seating the girl more comfortably. William, as he introduced himself, began to tell about his bull. That his name was Gavrisha. As in the famous cartoon, it's good that there was a wall between you. Now, if you were on the goal side, you wouldn't stand much of a chance, although they say bulls are colorblind. Somehow, I don't believe it. All your red flowers are to blame. So you think it's the flowers' fault? You do realize that you can't just walk such aggressive animals. What if it were a child or an elderly person in my shoes? William looked at her sympathetically. Yes, you're absolutely right. My fault. I moved the herd to a new location, and the timing seemed to be right when no one was here. And here you are with a red flower. Who are you visiting, if it's no secret? My grandfather. Really? He's dead? Yes, I know. My neighbor, by the way. It's a pity about the house. It's been abandoned for so many years. The whole yard is overgrown with weeds. I went to his funeral, too. A lot of people came. He was a sociable man when he was alive. I don't remember you. Did you come? No, I only found out later with my parents to his grave. I went several times. I regret it now, of course. But you can't turn back time. It was a long drive to the hospital. William had no choice but to endure complaints and grievances all the way. Adriana, the cast was put on quickly. They said it was a fracture, and there should be no complications. The girl was already happy about it. I hope you can drive me home, since it's on your way. Since your bull almost killed me. Of course I will. What do you think? Am I a monster or something? I'm sorry about what happened. On the way home, they stopped at a drugstore and bought painkillers. Within half an hour of the pill, the pain was gone, and Adriana was noticeably cheerful. She began to joke and stopped thinking about the bull. The whole point was that she was afraid to go into the house. It was already night, and she hadn't been in that house in years. She was afraid to go in there alone. Adriana didn't expect to get there until nightfall. Already driving up to the house, Adriana asked William if you could come inside with me. No one's been in the house for a long time. You never know. Am I afraid? No, I can't. I'm scared too. William laughed and winked at the girl. They had already pulled up to the house. Adriana tried to get out of the car herself. William helped her out and then said, "Would you like to come in for tea?" "I would love to." Adriana said, tired. Exhausted Adriana, and limped out, taking William under her arm. He was a physically strong man. It was immediately striking to see the wavy hair and thick, black eyebrows accentuating the blue as the sky, eyes bronzed by the sun's skin glowing slightly under the light of the moon. As they walked up the porch, Adriana involuntarily glanced at him, and next to him she didn't want anything artificial at all. She didn't think about her makeup or her broken fingernails on her hand. She wanted to wash, of course, but she didn't worry about the fact that her t-shirt wasn't the freshest she'd ever worn. There was a very gentle spring scent of flowers, and the night didn't seem as dark as it had been under the scattering of silver stars. They walked carefully up the high steps of the porch. Suddenly she asked, "Do you live alone?" "No, not alone. But don't worry. Guests are welcome in our house," William said quietly, smiling. He turned on the light in the hallway, and Adriana squeezed her eyes shut. The house was built of logs, and the inside was just well-brushed logs. The ceiling seemed high and was also made of wood. At first, Adriana felt like Mashenka from a fairy tale who found herself visiting the bear. Everything was massive, and at first glance it seemed careless. However, it looked very harmonious and warm. "Why don't you have any interior trim?" "No, and there won't be any." The house has to breathe. Don't you like it? William asked with interest. No, I like it. It's just unusual. I have never seen anything like that before. Adriana sat down on a chair and sighed. William knew right away that she was nervous. Don't worry, it's not a cave, he said with a smile. Let me make you a bed on the couch. My leg must be hurting. And when it's light, and we'll go to your place. We'll see everything there. The guy took some jam and sliced a loaf from the fridge, handed the girl a spoon, and they began to drink tea. It smelled of chamomile and street johnswort. The house really seemed to be breathing. Subtle scents of flowers were also reaching her. Even Adriana felt dizzy. She breathed deeper and deeper and could not get enough of it. The girl was already finishing her tea as a little old man came out of the far room. So we have guests, he exclaimed joyfully to Adriana with surprise, almost dropped the mug from her hands. It's a neighbor. She broke her leg on the way here. I will tell you all about it tomorrow. It's time to go to bed soon. All right, son, I won't torment you. The girl is exhausted, and the old man is gone, as if he hadn't been there at all. William helped Adriana to the bed and gave her his clean t-shirt, and the girl, impressed by the day, quickly fell asleep. So well, she had never slept before. It was already quite light outside the window. The clock on the wall showed 12. Adriana couldn't believe her eyes. Turning her head, she was surprised by the crunch of the pillow, just like from her childhood. It was as soft as clouds, on goose feathers. Made it myself, the old man said proudly, smoking beside the stove. Adriana flinched when she saw the old man and started apologizing for causing them trouble. Stop it, daughter. You have nothing to apologize for here. William is more to blame. It's not your fault. It's all his own fault. That's the way it is. You might not make it. You just lie there. Do you need peace? Why should I lie down? I came to see my grandfather, but it's too late. With regret, Adriana said and sat down on the bed. Well, as they say, better late than never. You change your clothes, and I'll think of something for tea. And the old man ran briskly into the kitchen. Adriana felt more or less. Her leg was a little sore, but it was bearable. On the table, there were already 2 mugs with poured tea and some lozenges and sweets. Adriana sat down at the table and didn't know what to talk about. But the nimble grandfather himself began the dialogue. So Adriana is your name? That's what William told me. Yes, that's right. Adriana smiled shyly. And my name is Liam. Grandfather, I'm William. My son's parents were in an accident and didn't survive in the car. William was 3 years old at the time. He was only 3 years old at the time. I guess God left him here for my comfort. Liam wiped away a sudden tear. I raised him myself. It wasn't hard. He's been helping me with my chores since I was a kid. Never gave up anything. He was just a boy. Already he was digging the garden faster than I was. And then he started doing everything himself. I don't know what I'd do without him. The only problem is I don't have a wife. But sometimes I want to hear children's laughter and play with my great-grandchildren, as long as I have strength. But I guess it's not my destiny. You can count all the young people here on your fingers. And city dwellers don't really want to live in the countryside. They say we have no entertainment, a barn, and a vegetable garden. That's all the entertainment. A city girl came to see us. I don't remember where he met her. She didn't last a week and left. Will you be with us long? Adriana was embarrassed that she came here to get the house ready for sale. I don't know. We have to go inside first. And then what happens? I can escort her. Liam bent his arm at the elbow, and they went into the house. It was bright outside, Adriana. Everywhere you looked, everything was flooded with warmth. The air was clear, and the girl's heart sang along with the many flocks of birds. The house smelled gray. A little light came in through the closed curtains. Liam pulled back the curtains and the hall flooded with light in his head. Adriana's memories began to come alive, and joy and sadness began to appear on her face. The old man noticed this and offered to leave her here while she agreed and promised to be more careful. Willem will be here soon. I'll tell him to come and get you. Don't do anything around the house now or you'll kill yourself. I'll get the rabbits some water and some herbs. I'll come and get you. Don't be shy. We have to get you back on your feet now. I don't need that sin in my old age. I'll be there in an hour. Or will William do it? Is that all right? Yeah, sure. Thank you, Liam. The old man left, and Adriana sat on the old couch in the big bright room, looking at the walls and cabinets. I wonder what's on top of the closet, the girl thought. Suddenly, there was a rustling sound from the kitchen. Who's there? Frightened, Adriana asked. Maybe a mouse or a cat. She calmed herself down. Then she heard the sound of footsteps. Someone was heading in her direction. Adriana's heart froze. An elderly woman came out of the kitchen. She had a confused, guilty look. "Excuse me, please. You must be the mistress of this house," she said quietly. "Yes, this is my house." "And who are you?" The fear was receding a little from Adriana. "I'm just a homeless woman. I come here sometimes to sleep over. I have nowhere to go. Nowhere at all. I know this house. I used to come to my grandfather's house sometimes, and when he was gone, I stopped coming here. I thought some relatives would come. I lived at my acquaintance's house all that time, but not to bother them at all, trying to stay somewhere else whenever possible, so as not to annoy them too much. I looked after their kids. They kept me as their nanny. But you have to have a conscience too. That's why I leave it periodically. Don't you call the police. Please, I'll go myself now." Adriana calmed down. She felt sorry for the woman. She looked harmless and well-groomed. A gray strand of hair fell over her face from a kerchief with flowers, and she fidgetily tucked it back into the kerchief with trembling hands. She looked to be in her 7th decade. Adriana wondered, why didn't she have a house of her own? "And where is your place?" She asked me if I had to sell my house for nothing. My son got into debt. People began to come and demand money. So I signed all the papers. And so I was left without a son and without a house. The woman's eyes watered. "I honestly, very sorry for you, but you also understand me. I came to prepare the house for sale, but fell yesterday badly. Now I don't even know what to do. I'll help you. I know how to do everything. I still have God give everyone. But to tell you the truth, it would be very inconvenient for me now, and I have nothing to pay you with," answered Adriana. "And you do not have to pay me." The woman perked up. "I have enough for a bed, and I have enough to eat. I earn my pension. Surely it would be convenient for you?" Adriana asked with a smile. "Of course it's comfortable. My daughter, my name is Slaga. You can call me Aunt Slaga, and you can call me Adriana." At that moment, someone knocked on the door. It was Grandpa Liam. "But I see you two have met. What did you know?" Adriana looked at him with surprised eyes. "Yes, I knew. The woman is decent. She's been sleeping here for 3 weeks now. She would have cleaned it up too, but she's afraid of the neighbors. The house is derelict and abandoned. It's been a long time, and no one has come. There were 2 drunken men here before Slag. To tell you the truth, I had to ask William to kick them out, or they would have burned the whole house down. Home is home, daughter. It's not an apartment. It needs an owner. There's no place like home. Of course, now that you're here, that's different. You're the landlady. You decide who lives here. I don't mind." Adriana lowered her eyes guiltily. "Of course, it was all my fault. To be honest, I imagined things a little differently. I thought it was ruined. I wanted to sell the plot, but it was like he was waiting for someone." "So what did you decide?" The old man corrected his beard. "White as snow. I don't know. Now I even have to think hard." She said thoughtfully, "Maybe we'll go to my place for pancakes. I made pancakes for pancakes. It's better." I think Liam insisted with interest. It's embarrassing, isn't it? You must be sick of me by now. Adriana said, "Don't give me that. It's embarrassing. We're simple people. Everything is comfortable for us. Or next time I'll be offended." "Okay, Liam, I understand," said the girl. And they all went to the pancakes. At the table sat, as if nothing had happened, William, and was eating pancakes with sour cream on his face without an ounce of surprise. So Adriana guessed that he too was aware of the events. "Did you know Aunt Slaga lived in the house too?" "I knew I didn't know. What difference does it make? My own house is enough for me. What's going on in the other houses?" "That's none of my business." William quickly finished his tea and took his jacket and left. "Don't pay any attention to him." Liam began to justify himself. "He's a bit wild, and I have no experience with women the way the city does. He may seem rude to you, but he's the kindest man I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen a lot." And the old man stroked his silky beard again. They sat down at the table, and the gap between them began to narrow. Each told his own tragic story, and it became clear that life is hard, and no one has ever lived it without suffering and grief. Adriana talked about her failed marriage. Aunt Slaga talked about her selfish son, and Liam talked about the accident that turned his life upside down. The old man persuaded Adriana to stay and bring the house up to date. He took care of her as if she were his own daughter. Every day he made her eat cottage cheese and drink milk to make the bone heal faster. He himself took part in repairing the house. The house turned out to be surprisingly strong of timber. The plot was not flooded either, and nothing was particularly rotten. Still, it was a lot of work. Liam told William to mow the weeds, and he did it immediately, without talking. Aunt Slaga trimmed the apple trees and raspberries, and tidied up the bed of perennial flowers. It was obvious that she loved working in the garden and did it with pleasure. She praised the soil. She said the soil was very fertile and soft. 2 weeks later, the house was looking livable. William fixed the fence, and Aunt Clara painted it green. Adriana was very sad that she would have to sell the lot. Had she already made friends with both Liam and Aunt Clara? She felt comfortable, like she was in a real family, which she herself had not had for a long time. With William, however, Adriana was not at all comfortable. She even felt he was avoiding her, and she liked him, every day more and more. "That was all," she said at their table one evening. "It's time for me to go home. Thank you so much for all your kindness. That's all I've ever seen from my parents." Liam stroked his beard and squinted his eyes and said, "I hate to sell the house. Is it really better in the city?" "Yes, of course it is. But there's no work here." "There is no work." The old man looked at her surprised. "Maybe not for the lazy, but for normal people there is plenty. Look in the window, how much work there is. There's land, there's a barn, so there's a job too. Look at William, doesn't he miss work?" "That's true, but you don't get paid for that kind of work. I've got loans to pay off. I'm afraid the banks don't want cows. I don't have any. Maybe they don't need the cows, but you can sell the meat. Every year we sell to resellers, and we're not poor. The land will feed everyone," Liam said with a smile. "That's true. But you, William, have, and I am alone. I don't need cows. I'd sooner get this cast off. Can't do it without a man. And I don't know how to plant anything in the garden. You've had to learn that since you were a child." "What do you mean, without a man? What about William?" "I guess that's what Liam wanted to say a long time ago. I'd be happy to help with the garden. I decided to do my part, Slaga." William was watching TV, but when he heard this conversation, he went outside. Well, as you can see, Adriana threw up her hands and began to gather things. The old man waved his hand and began to go through the onions, trying not to see how the girl was packing. Adriana began to feel unpleasant at heart. She said goodbye to her Aunt Slaga and allowed her to stay while she looked for buyers. William, as it turned out, was already sitting in the car waiting for Adriana to come out. He took the bag from her and put it in the trunk. "Get in. I'll take you cold," William said. Adriana stood silently and looked at him. "Get in. It's no trouble to me. If that's all you're interested in." She wanted to get in the back seat, but William's serious eyes made her change her mind. Once in the front seat, she sighed sadly. "Are you still afraid of me? I must be so scary." William started the car, and they drove off. Through the rearview window, Adriana saw that Liam and Aunt Clara had gotten out on the road and were looking after them. Sadly, Adriana said, "Such good people. That's all right. You'll forget to be sad. It's fun in the city." William sort of forced a smile out of himself. Adriana felt uncomfortable. "I knew from the beginning that you wouldn't stay. It was my old man, the naive one, who consoled himself with hope, all wants to marry me. At one time, he even offered to sell a house and move to town. I'm happy as I am." William added a tape recorder and the rest of the way. Neither of them uttered a word. The drive was very excruciating. There was a great deal of tension. When they got to town, the tension eased a bit. Everyone knew it would be over soon. William walked Adriana to the door. "Why don't you come in for some tea? Surely not the same as yours?" Adriana asked unexpectedly. "Well, let's go in and see where you live." And he went into the apartment. He took his shoes off. William went around the rooms. He looked around. His eyes said that he could not understand how this apartment was better than his home. While Adriana was putting the kettle on and rustling around in the kitchen, William went into the bathroom. "Well, I like it at your place, but better at home." And he went to put his shoes on. "What about the tea?" And Adriana, tea on the long road is a dangerous thing. The city is not the country. You can't go beyond the fence. William flashed a smile and opened the door. Adriana went to close it behind him. Then he turned around and kissed her. It was so sudden that the girl only woke up when he left. She ran to the window and saw William, looking around the windows, getting into the car. Feelings flashed through her heart like a fire into which oil had been splashed. All night long she couldn't sleep. Then the pillow seemed too hard. Then the car's humming, making noise outside the window. Even deep into the night, when the city had quieted down a bit, she couldn't sleep. She thought I disappointed the old man and Aunt Clara, who must be getting ready for the new owners to arrive. And most of all, she thought of William. What was he feeling? It was now past 4 in the morning when the phone rang. But what? Not thinking of going back. Angry, William asked, "Why did you leave?" asked Adriana. In a worried voice, "I came back halfway down the driveway. I've been waiting for you to realize that I love you, but you still do not get it. Well, has the kettle boiled? I'm freezing though. Come in, of course." Adriana was overjoyed, and they spent the rest of the night together in the same bed. Adriana agreed to go to the country with William. They decided to rent out the apartment at a profit, and with that money to pay off the loans, she had to tell him about her ex-husband Michael. "His things are lying in her apartment. Throw them out and that's it," said William with a frown on his brow. "I can't, because they aren't my things. What right do I have to do that to them? I don't know about you, but I have that right." William picked up all the bags and put them in the trash. "This is all his stuff?" Angrily he asked. "Yes," Adriana said, and smiled. "I couldn't have done it myself. Thank you. Maybe while we're in town and apply, or don't you agree?" I could see that William was very nervous. "Why don't you say something?" "No, I'm not. I'm ready for any answer." "I agree. Let's do it. Maybe we'll have kids while we have nothing to do," Adriana asked jokingly. "Are you thinking right?" William smiled shortly. That's how it all worked out. They did not return home to the village until a week later. In that time, Adriana had signed a contract for the rent of the house. She found good tenants. They went to apply at the wedding bureau, but the long line didn't suit them, and they didn't want to come back here either. They decided to get married around a lavish wedding. Neither of them wanted one. and there wasn't really anyone to invite. William was very worried about the farm and his grandfather, and he kept hurrying Adriana. She understood and was going as fast as she could. Adriana's cast had long since been removed, but she was limping out of habit. They had to order a car to move all the necessary things. They kept in touch with Liam and kept him up to date. He was very happy and kept the phone with him at all times because he was worried about William. Never before had he left him for so long. And the old man began to feel sad a lot. He already began to think that William might like it there and leave him. He had heard many such stories in his long life. But one evening he saw a familiar car in the yard, and his heart was filled with joy again. At last, I thought we'd missed it. The old man helped unload the things and muttered, "This is the right thing to do. That's our way." William and Adriana got married and had a modest wedding celebration. Liam gave them a substantial gift. He really wanted them to go to the sea. While I'm up, go. And then the household. The children need to travel for the young people. They willingly agreed and prepared for the trip. In the evening, Adriana sat on a bench outside William's house. They lived here now. Liam and Aunt Clara moved into Adriana's house. They were safe and comfortable there. And then she saw a familiar silhouette. It couldn't be, the girl muttered. It was her ex-husband, Michael. "Well, hello, wife. Or you're not my wife anymore." Michael spoke at once, smiling crookedly. "What do you want? How did you find me?" "You're supposed to be in jail." Michael laughed. "Supposed to be in jail? You say, why should I be there? You think you put me in jail, and that's the end of it. You don't know what amnesty and a good lawyer for good money means. How could you know that? You were a chicken, and you're still a chicken." He picked up a passing chicken, and it clucked hard. "What are you doing? Why did you come here? Should I call the police again?" Frightened, Adriana began to shout. "Don't yell, you fool. The tenants gave me your address. I'm not going to live with you myself. You're a boring hillbilly woman, and I already found a new one by correspondence. I'm here for my stuff. What's the point? I wasted a lot of time on you. Give me back my things and go on your walk. You're a bull's tail here. I don't have your things. I threw them away a long time ago." Adriana answered cheerfully. "You bastard, you've ruined my life." He gritted his teeth. "Michael, you were poisoning me with beautiful poison. Which one of us is an asshole? I almost died." "Yes." Adriana's lips quivered and her eyes darkened. "You'd better be dead. You're useless anyway. Son." She heard Adriana behind her back. Adriana turned around and saw Aunt Clara. The woman was standing there crying. "And here you are," Michael said angrily. "I had hoped that you were no longer alive. You gave birth to me for your own pleasure. And you never cared if your son needed money. I hate you." Michael cried out and clenched his hand into a fist. Liam ran out of the house when he heard the scream. "What do you want? Is there a boy here?" he asked. He asked in a voice that sounded perplexed. "Go away, old man. It's none of your business. Go inside. It'll be worse for the sons of bitches. You've ruined my whole life." Michael gritted his teeth. The women didn't dare say anything back to him. Seeing William's car, Adriana exhaled. William got out of the car and, smiling, headed toward them. "We have company." He looked at the frightened women and realized that the guest was not kind. "It's my ex-husband Michael who came to get his things," Adriana said quietly. "Is that what it is? Why are you so frightened?" William said, looking into the uncertain eyes of Michael. Well done then. Among the sheep he came to us among the sheep. He's a sheep himself. That's the way it goes. Man, choose your words. You can answer for them." Michael looked nervously at everyone around him, especially at Adriana. Now his eyes were more a plea for help than anger. "Here you and I are going to go into the ex-husband's office to get our stuff, and I'll pick out the words you deserve. William grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and dragged him to the barn where his beloved breeding bull Gavrisha stood. After a brief word choice and introduction to Gavrisha and William himself, Michael, covered in manure and straw, waddled toward the bus stop, holding on to his ribs. Well, the guest was now escorted to the sea to rest, and not Sin shaking off the straw. And smiling contentedly, said William. Aunt Slaga went to pack her things in tears. Where are you going? What's the matter? The son of a degenerate. What's that got to do with you? Liam ran frantically around her. I'm not staying. Don't talk me into it. It's embarrassing. I can't stand it. I have to get out of here. I'm ashamed to look you in the eye. Where are you going, Slaga? They're going to the sea, and I'm here alone with 7 cows in Gavrish. Are you kidding me? Liam was angry. And the rabbits? Did you think about them? You're the one who's got the rabbits all to yourself, and now you want to leave it all to me alone. William laughed. It was interesting to him to watch them with a woman like that, and he didn't mind leaving his grandfather alone. You're not the only one who seems to have found a wife for me, Liam. By evening, everything had quieted down. The old and young sat around a small table and drank tea. Everyone felt part of this family, needed and integral, and even the baby in the belly lent his mother, Adriana, a jolt, in a sign of agreement and unity.